And welcome to another episode of DIOTALK. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening is a motivated speaker. She's a fan of art. She's a traveler, but most of all, she's an author. She's the author of Acceptance. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rebecca Heidt. How are you?
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for joining me. It's an honor. How you been so
Absolutely.
far?
Not too bad actually. I'm just about finished book three, and as a writer, when you like get near that end, it like takes over your life and it's like a whole new drive happening.
Yes, yes, yes. I feel that. So what inspired you to write this book? Because you mentioned you're on your third book now. What inspired? Let's start with the beginning, because I know
Sure,
you're.
yeah.
So what inspired you to?
Ironically, the
Yeah,
book is called Acceptance the Beginning.
yeah,
Ah, that was
yeah,
perfect. I agree. That was fantastic. So the what really sort of inspired, I've always loved the fiction fantasy genre, always growing up. It's always been a thing. Um, I grew up on Buffy. I grew up
oh, I love
on
Buffy.
Xena. Yeah, Buffy's amazing. Like it shaped who I was, and I would like to tell my family the nights that it came on. I would like record it in VHS if I had to go do something. Oh yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing. And just I don't know, it just like comic books and the young adults, they have some great stories. Like just it
Yeah,
really sort of takes it over. So these books and these stories are the things that help you escape, deal with emotions you weren't really taught to deal with or express or process. And I mean, that's what the industry is about. It's
yeah,
entertainment, but it's also therapy, if you think about
yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what drove me. I remember in sixth grade, we had a creative writing class randomly in middle school, and I don't remember why, but they were like, here's the book, The Giver. It's a little messed up, but here you go. It won awards. It's great.
Hmm.
Now the book ends. What is your story after that? And so we all wrote. And so, like, my teacher was just blown away. I don't even remember what it was, but it was like they escaped. And then, like, there was like this
Yeah,
whole chaos ensuing. And so my teacher was like, okay, okay, what about birds? If you remember the story Birds, it's when they're in that town and all the birds are like going after people in the
yeah,
town. It's like a national phenomenon. It's a thing. And they're like, okay, the book ends. Now write the rest of the story and end it. And so I did. And my teacher like stopped me after class and was like, listen, you're really good at this. And I was like, sixth grader. I'm like, thanks so much. Like, it's great. They're like, when you get older, you
hmm,
can write books. I was like, okay.
yeah,
So that sort of put the seed into my mind. And then I tabled it because I was like, writing can't really do a whole lot. And I hit the restaurant industry. I went out and did manual labor, and I, built my skills up. But then,
which
COVID
sucked
started
because
happening.
it's
Yeah,
which
like
sucked. Yeah. So it went from bad to worse because once COVID hit, it just like
yes, yeah, COVID just changed the world, and I mean it really, yeah. I lost a lot of family members, unfortunately.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
not ironically or not ironically, not from COVID, just
Hmm.
literally in the same month, they just all passed away from different
Yeah,
things. It's just bad timing. Um, so I was like this an emotional storm in my body. I couldn't go out the house. I couldn't, like, what are you gonna do with it?
yeah,
You
yeah.
can't let it destroy you. You can't let it drown you. So I started writing. And when I write for myself, it's very raw. Um, and people love when I write like that. Like how I write for other people and how I write for myself are completely
Hmm.
different.
Yeah.
And so I turned it into a book. I turned it into a story, and it's 4 books long.
How was that writing process? Like, was it was it something like, because I know there's a big thing when it comes to writer block, or when you get to a certain point within writing a story, you just like, what else? I have to go do something else so I can refresh that mind. How was that journey for you?
Yeah. So I if I get writer's block where I haven't decided or committed to a plot in a story because I don't want to mess it up, I'll take a break and go do art. And so because
Mm,
I'm frustrated at myself and my brain for not uh, seeing me through this essentially. And so I take the aggravation out on my art, which is acrylic, spray painting. Like I make a mess. Like I throw stuff at it. Like it's great. It's very great.
therapeutic.
And yeah, it's oh, it's beautiful. Like it's a whole big thing. Like airbrushing, I'm like blah. Um, and I have to do a couple sometimes. And it sort of opens up some thinking for me, and some ideas, and then I'll grab onto those ideas and go from there. Sometimes if I'm not really in the mood for art, but I'm frustrated and I want to work on something, um, I'll write down ideas, research it, see how it fits, but I'll also find certain music that helps me
Mm,
get into that place. So if I'm in a fantastic mood, but I have to write a really depressing scene, they're
yeah.
not going to collate, you know? If I don't feel it, it doesn't get written. If I don't see it,
It's not real.
it's exactly like I'm not going to fake my way through a story.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I write it and when the readers read it and it's like really grabbing their soul, it's because it grabbed mine.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, so is it real like because when you write like that, what makes it, phenomenon is the detail.
Yeah.
Like it's when you read it, you're able to, as you read it, like your head becomes because imagines the scene detail for detail.
That
Are
is
you
correct.
able to? So are you able to envision that when you write it? That's what makes you satisfied with the plot or what you're writing.
Yes. So, for example, in Acceptance the Beginning, book one, I wrote this whole big thing in it was a gala event.
Mm,
I was actually going to make it a masquerade ball. I was like, that's a little cliche, but I used it like a little later. But I did a gala event, and I was like, where is this gala event going to happen? So I had to invent a place.
yeah.
And what I can't, I love history. I love European history specifically. And I like a lot of their castles and their mansions and their, like, the old English
Yeah.
lords and earl homes. And yeah, so I sort of saw that. And then I pulled the details together, like marble flooring, and then this beautiful light mahogany or oak like railing, and it has statues on it, and everything is usually based in nature. So the basis for the stories are nature, because that's what connects us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very, all of the color schemes are like browns, gold, silvers, like fallish kind of
Yeah.
colors.
Do you like when you have an idea, right? And I asked this question because I've spoken to a lot of authors, but you're different because you're like detailing things.
Yes.
Do you do you get an idea, and once you got the idea, you start doing research on what you're trying to picture?
So I only when it comes to the actual places and the
Mhm.
buildings, no. And I don't know why, honestly. I just see it. Like I don't
Yeah,
it's just there in my mind and I just explain what I see. But
that's
there's
amazing.
that's like there's a chase scene near the beginning of book one. And what I did do is research how Sweden, it's in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden, and I
Yeah.
brought up the streets and I like looked at the map of the city to make sure I don't tell them to turn right a bunch and it doesn't exist. Like I wanted
Yeah.
it to be semi-realistic. Yeah. And I was like, how high are the I was like, how high is the second floor? Or like, what do the homes look like? Are there apartments or are they just homes? Like I was just Googling. I was so there was a fight scene and I try to be as realistic as possible. So I'll Google the names of certain moves because I don't want to be that person. Or like weapons.
Yeah.
Like I do not want to mess that
Yeah.
up. Yeah. And there was this one literally right after the chase. she like hides behind the garbage can. And I was like, but their garbage cans look different than ours. I'm American. They're not, they don't have American ones.
They're
And so I had
classic.
to Google it. Yeah. I was like, garbage can in Sweden. What do they look like? I
That's
was like,
awesome.
oh.
How long did it take you to like develop the full story from start to finish? Like, was it a long period of time?
So when I first came up with the story, it took a little bit. So like at my most depressed time during after my family it happened and everything sort
Mm,
of shut down, um, I knew I wanted to write a story, but I didn't know how I wanted to write it. So I would sit with music, like a couple of songs on repeat
yeah,
that really sort of like gave me that imaginary vision. And I was like, so I really like meditated and dug in there. And it sort of just unfolded on its own. So I don't know. I don't know if it was me or like someone helping me out and telling me what I needed to do. Like,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, but it just sort of developed on its own. And so that started with a horse. It started with like someone on a horse and like running. They need to go save somebody. And then I was like, okay, well, that's way too far in the storyline. We got to start it somewhere else. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the wrong section. So then it just sort of unfolded on its own. It originally was going to be two books, and then I realized that was absolute nonsense.
Got to make it three.
Um, yeah, yeah, I knew what the plot was for the books before I started writing. The main points,
Hmm.
the small details and the in-betweens and the filler scenes are the hardest because I
Yeah,
already knew what the story was going to be.
because you have to like make sense of it. Like
Yeah.
it's like when you're watching an anime show where like it's the storyline is big, but then you have these filler episodes that's like kind of drag, and it has to match just to, certain stories and whatnot. So I
Yep.
get it.
Yeah. And people, I didn't want people to hate the filler scenes because they're sort of needed, but not really. They're like comedy relief, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like is the comedy gonna hit different for each person? Are they gonna get it? Or are they gonna think it's that kind of thing.
Who's the first person you were like when you finished like book one? Who was the first person that you let read, because that's a crucial moment, in hopes that they're at least one that tries to understand or understands where you're coming from, and how was that moment like? Who was that person?
So when I first put it out, I mean, my editor is the one that technically read it first. And she like loved it. She was all like, she was like low key. I want to find out what happens to this person, and so I intentionally put that explanation in the next book for her. I was like, yeah, that
Mhm.
totally makes sense. And so she loved it. But the person after that, once it actually rolled out, was actually my coworker at the time. Um, Great guy, Michael Rivera. So he bought it immediately. The second I texted him my book was out, he like
Yeah.
bought it ebook and then read it. And 2 days later, he was like, "This is great." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you got it that quick. Like, I appreciate you."
That's awesome. That's awesome. um are you planning to like later on, like maybe in hopes to develop, make it to like an animation or short movie or something, make it come to life?
Oh, I love that you asked that question. That's a great question because I have so many plans. I am not without vision for sure. So acceptance, the beginning, book one, and then acceptance, the reality, book two. And then I'm about to finish Reborn, Acceptance Reborn, book three, and I'm gonna have number four, which isn't named yet. So book one is going to be an audio book at the end of this year
Oh,
for
awesome.
people that are not a fan of reading or medically can't hold a book. They can listen to it.
Yeah,
Eventually I'll do book two, but time.
yeah,
It takes time.
yeah.
So actually recently I just partnered up with Undisputed Films and Sir
Oh, nice.
Marco Robinson. So we're gonna make a rendition movie of Acceptance, the beginning. So it's gonna be a movie.
That's
Um,
so dope.
it's gonna be great. I'm so
It's gonna be
excited.
awesome.
Yeah, it is. Like slow mo and like a fight scene and like, oof, I'm
Super
excited.
exciting. Super exciting.
Yes, it's a big deal. Like I already started. Uh, well, I mean, there's only so much you can do right now with everything going on, but like I already know what I'm like making up screens and like telling them what I want. It's
Giving
gonna
them
be great.
directions and how things.
Yeah. This is the
That's
music in the
awesome.
background.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Are you like, is the audiobook gonna be a simple read, or are you gonna have like uh people acting out the scenes and whatnot?
Um, the audiobook.
Yeah.
So with the audiobook, she's literally just reading book one. So she's a voice
Okay.
actor. So she's
Got it.
just reading it word for word.
Yeah. See, yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta make it like, that's one thing I guess I dislike about audiobooks, that sometimes the reader is just like, oh, super just dull. And like I
Mm.
can't, like, the book is so good, everybody's getting so, like, I like the 49 Laws of Power. I have the book version and I have the audio version. And I had to buy the book because the audio version was like some British guy. And it was like so dull. And I'm trying to like get into like the laws and all this, but it's
Yeah.
like it's so unmotivating, so civilized. No, like, you know, climax or something, you know? So I'll
Oh my
say
gosh.
that, but that's dope. I'm happy you're doing all those stuff. That's awesome.
Yeah. She does change her voice like for each character. Like she makes it engaging.
Yeah.
So she doesn't just read it, like read it to read it. Like she actually is a like does different things. Yeah. I'm really excited about her doing it. Um just because it's happening at all. I'm
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
excited about everything all the time.
I mean, one moment you're working, that COVID hits, and you're writing this book, and like it's like almost so real. You
Yeah.
you have every right to feel happy and joyful because it's a dream that you made into a vision and now into reality. I mean, I'll be so too.
Yeah. It's I mean I was thinking about it like every book that I complete, I look back at it
Hmm.
and I'm just like I don't even know how I did this. Like I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like because it's literally every day, every day, every day. And then you edit it and then it's like an ongoing project and it takes time. Like I've been working on book 3 for I don't know, a while. I don't know, not a year, but like 7, 8 months maybe. And it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a weird creation that it like,
Time and
and
dedication,
yeah, blood, sweat, and tears.
literally. What did you have a lot of drafts? Did you have to like go back, scratch, redo, go back?
Yes and no, yes and no. So it really helps that I know what the stories already is.
Yeah.
But there are some things that missed that I didn't quite like. I deleted a whole character like in a scene, and they're like, "Where's Melanie?" And I was like, "I don't know. She's shopping, I guess." Like I don't know, but I really didn't have to change it that much. Honestly, it's just like little things here and there. Don't forget to mention this, or in book one, you mentioned this one thing, you have to mention it again. Otherwise,
Hmm.
there's a discontinuance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Consistency within the story, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it, got it. What are some things that you would look for besides music? Did you read anything or watch anything that would help you, like, when you at that moment that you feel like burned out, all right, I gotta take a break. This is not going anywhere. Like, did you watch any show in particular, or an episode or movie that helped you get you back on track?
Yes and no. So like I'm a big fan of Emily Andra's work. So she did Lost Girls in Canada and she did one oh she's Canadian. Let's start there. So she did Lost Girls.
Yeah,
And then she also did Winona Earp, which is also a Canadian show on sci-fi. And
got it.
I would like to consider myself an Earper. And it really so I watched a lot of that like I watched a lot of those shows. And then I
Yeah,
also watched the Comic-Con YouTube videos of
got it,
them,
got it.
at the Comic-Cons. And so it, made me really think about what they were saying and also lighten my mood up. So if I was frustrated about something in particular, it always made me a lot happier. Um, yeah. So I mean, it really depends. It was mostly that. I don't watch a ton of TV, but I sort of like to know what's going on because it's
Yeah,
important.
stay in tune, trend and whatnot. That's
Mhm.
awesome. What's up? Can you without telling without giving too much of the story, would you able to give a little brief descriptions about book one?
Sure. So, Selena Wilson is the main character. She was raised by her uncle Liam. She doesn't know a lot about her history or where she came from. She just knows her parents passed away. Her uncle kept it a very like huge secret. She has glowing eyes and unusual strength, which is more mystical, but she was trained to keep it under control and keep it hidden. So growing up, she had to learn how to be herself, be kind to other people, but also protect them and their family without completely knowing why or what's going on. So when she's older, she's around about mid 20s or so. She's has a full-time job. She's learning how to be as normal, quote unquote, as possible with the condition of her upbringing. She also is trained in weapons to protect herself if need be, so she wouldn't accidentally hurt somebody. Um, so with that, obviously there's she falls in love with someone, she goes on some dates, she finds some betrayal, and then a lot of unfortunate things start unraveling for her. So she has to learn how to deal with those negative emotions while also not losing herself in that. Because you know how when something negative or if you feel rejection or betrayal, it's very easy to just sort of fall in that hole.
Yeah.
It's important to remember like we were raised to care for other people around us and when people need help to help them. And so she was faced with, do I fall apart or do I do what I know to do? And so that opens the door to book two, the reality. So when she makes her choices, you have to the every choice, good and bad, has a consequence, and that's what she has to face in book two.
Wow. Sounds amazing. Sounds like an adventure waiting
It
to
is.
happen. That's
It sure
awesome.
was. It's an adventure to write it, and it's an adventure to read it.
Well, and soon you're gonna be able to live it because everything moves smoothly. Like you're gonna be able to see it on the big screen, which is
Yeah.
awesome, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, you mentioned you're a fan of like comic books. Any superhero in particular you're fascinated with?
Um, I can't remember off the top of my head, and like immediately there was a couple. Like I did when I was younger, there's the Batmans, and then like the Ivy,
Yeah, yeah,
because when we were younger, we didn't have the internet.
yeah,
So they
yeah,
had comic books, and so like I also had the Mad comic. The Mad comic books.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, super inappropriate for someone my age, but my brother had them, and I like loved them too. And then when Buffy ended, they had the motion comic and also comic books as well. So I read a lot of Buffy books because they had some of the writers for the show made actual series, like different series
yeah,
but and I owned almost all of them.
yeah. It's funny because in the books it's more detailed oriented, and like sometimes a better story than what they actually portray on the screen.
Yes. Well, yes and no. Like it still went along the line, but it was things like what there was a one series that just really stuck in my mind. What if she became a vampire and then she was like the ultimate, like really bad vampire, and then she like learned to outsmart that? It was like crazy. I was like, this is so dark and amazing. This is great.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm glad all those shows like I know Buffy, Xena, they don't have that now. That those shows were awesome back in the day. I
Yeah.
especially I love Buffy, I love Xena. I used to watch Hercules. Like those are more
Yes.
like it was like adult shows, but like also made for like if the kids would watch them, it wouldn't be that crazy around them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
feel like
true.
yeah, I feel like some shows now are just either more inappropriate or is either like there's no balance. It's either more or less.
Yeah.
And imagine like everything, everything's a superhero nowadays. Like, I
Yes.
remember back then going to the comic book store, like, make fun of us. Now everybody's a damn superhero. And like the story doesn't even make sense no more.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Like the story has to, you can't justify a plot by it becoming what you want because the characters have their own mind, they have their own
Yeah.
drive, they have their own thing. And like if I want her to do something and the story she starts taking it somewhere else, like I am not going to force anything. Like she's driving the boat.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
characters are driving the boat. Mm. You can't make something happen out of thin air if it doesn't fit. You can't.
I agree. And I think that's what happens. Like example, like the Marvel movies, like the Eternal were supposed to be like the next big thing to that storyline with Thanos and whatnot. It just for me, it's just like what happened, you know? So they did this whole build up and whatnot, and like I'm lost now.
Yeah,
Like who's who
yeah.
now? So I get it. I get it. So do you have any specific date when the third book is coming out?
Um, I was saying, I was saying in early 2024, but I might actually be able to roll it out earlier than that. I'm not 100%, I don't have that specific date. So we'll say winter 2023, beginning of 2024. I just don't
Got it.
have a
Got
date.
it. Got it. But it's read and done, edited, just ready to print.
No, not at all. So I
Almost
just
there. Almost there.
almost there. It's like, so I have ADHD. So what happens is I get so excited about something happening and it like completely derails my train of thought and I can't really write because then it's just like this mess. But I just finished chapter 15 and there should be roughly um I would say 19 to 20 chapters. So it's almost done.
Got
They're
it. Got it.
almost to like there's one big thing, there's one big more event that needs to happen. I need to write it, but I really want to finish the whole story like written by the end of September so I can give it to my editor.
Got it. Got it. Do when you give it to your editor, do they pressure you on like, oh, we're on a time limit? Like, because I see in shows and movies and whatnot, they're always like pressuring the writer to get it done.
No, because I'm self-published. If I was
Mm.
traditional published, absolutely. They had
What
timelines and everything.
what's the difference between besides that you're doing it yourself, having some right? It's like a dumb question. Like doing it yourself and having an actual editor do it for you.
The editing or just like the book itself?
Uh, editing.
Editing. So I pre-edit. So the thing about editing is there's plot editing, there's grammar
Mm,
editing, and then there's also sentence structure editing. So
mm.
like the way the actual sentences, does it make sense? Does it flow? Is it logical now? And then the grammar is like a whole different like it's grammar. And no one really likes grammar. I mean, let's be real. And then there's the plot. So when you give something to the editor, you can't, well, I mean, you can, but it's not advisable that you tell them to do all three because it's unrealistic and it's a lot for them. So what I do is I'll I will I'll give them the story and say, okay, does the plot make sense? Not does there any holes? Does it make sense? That's all I ask.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they'll like fix some of the words like present tense versus past tense. I'll read it through 2 or 3 times and then I can usually catch the little things or like I said a sentence 4 times in the last 10 chapters. I don't like that, so I'll change it. So like
Mm.
I'll catch it. Um so she reads it as many times as I give it to her. But to be fair,
Yes.
sometimes I'll use Grammarly to catch some things if it works correctly. And then I'll read it 2 or 3 times, and then I'll give it to her into a final. But I usually give it to one other person to just read the whole thing when it's completely done, just to double check.
Got
And
it, got it.
it's usually someone who likes books.
Obviously, right? Yeah.
Obviously.
How do you know? How do you determine? Because it's you're in the process of finalizing your third book. How do you know when you're like, okay, the story's done?
Hmm.
Like, how do you know that it's completed, and not editing wise, but like just, or you did book one, then
Hmm.
book two, right? Like, how do you know when to stop or was like, okay, this is how far I will go,
Right.
not on to the next.
I decide somewhere in the middle where I'm going to stop them each. Um, Book one, I decided because I like to do on cliffhangers. I like love it but
Mm,
hate it at the same time.
got it.
So as a reader, I know how that feels, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so book one, I was explaining grief. A lot of it has to do with grief. I mentioned that a lot in all
Mm,
my books because grief isn't just someone dying. It's us it's a change situation. We move houses. You're grieving your old house because that's where you grew up. You're grieving friendships that you no longer have. Like you're grieving a job that you just left because that's what you knew and change is difficult. Like grief is constant. So in book one, I was describing her grief and how she was going to deal with it. And I didn't, it wasn't a cliffhanger, but that was
yeah.
intentional.
Got it. Got it.
Book two was a cliffhanger. Book three will be a cliffhanger too. But
Yeah.
I decided in the middle what can what makes sense for the story. What
So, so are you saying without saying there's a possibility of a book four?
Oh yeah, there's absolutely gonna be a book four. Oh yeah, there's gonna be mythology, tree of life, tree of knowledge, and it's gonna be a big old fight scene, and people are gonna die, and it's gonna be great. It's a good time.
Is it? It's a. Do you know by definitely it's gonna be your last book, book four? Like, do you already
Um,
know? Like, is it like I know a lot of writers say, and a lot of writers and actors they'll talk and say that before you start, you have to know the ending.
mm,
It's getting to the ending, which is it's the work.
yeah. I know after the big fight scene, I'm not gonna say a whole lot more about it.
Mm,
Like in the story itself. So I'm gonna wrap it up. So it depends on what happens between the cliffhanger on three and the ending. Because if there's more information, I don't like making a book more than 400 pages for multiple
God,
different reasons. So I try to keep it not that big.
not that long. It's just
Yeah.
too much to read.
It's well, it's not, it's also because of like the print, because of all the increasing fees in the
Oh,
publishing
got it,
world are
got it.
absolutely ridiculous. So I want it to be big enough to be amazing and give it what it's due. I do not want to rush or not say something intentionally just to move the story along. I want to give it the love it
Yeah,
needs.
you want to give a good product out there,
Exactly.
which
Yeah.
is as an independent publisher, you're doing exactly that because sometimes you just when people invest in your product and they're investing money into it, they tend to shift it around. And then once the vision you had is no longer there because now you have these people that have money influence that makes everything, crap. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. Kudos to you for doing that.
Totally. Yeah. I really want to do a comic book. Like it's really something deep in me that I want to do 100%. And I was debating on doing a comic book for the series itself, like a
Yeah.
version of that. But then someone suggested to do a spin-off, comic book, a spin-off of the series, which I liked because I want to do a spin-off of the mythology, like the gods and goddesses and
Yeah. Yeah.
mythology, and
Yeah.
like their story tied into my series. So I'm playing with some ideas.
It's not that's not a bad actually a bad idea. You're creating slowly but surely you're creating this whole world and universe,
Yep.
and it's I think if you're trying to tell a story regarding like mythology, whatnot, through comic books, it's like you always have that special way of showing something different.
Yes.
Because in books and readings, like, you know, you could tell Zeus's story so many times, but now if you're able to like give it your own, like create it from scratch, like he doesn't have white hair, he has black hair, or green
Yeah.
eyes, make it your way, it'll like it'll stand more out than in. I'm not sure if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. We have a vision of what mythology looks like based off of the stories already existed, but they existed before they are now. Thor has the hammer, but what was he before he had the hammer? And I mean, technically, there's like a version of a show called Ragnar.
I watched that.
Yeah, it's a great show, right? It's a great show.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
started watching it now. It just came out on Netflix. Not
great.
bad though.
I
For low
like it.
budget. Yeah, for a low
Yeah,
budget show, like
really
it's
good.
kind of good. Yeah, it's good.
I agree. Like I found it randomly and I was like, this is great. But like it really puts a light on like there's more. There's so much
Hmm.
more. And they always say there's the Greek gods and the Norse gods and the Roman gods. And they always say, sort of have to choose one. And I'm like, but why? Like they sort of
Yeah,
don't like each other sometimes, but they're also best friends sometimes too. But what if there was a story that was mixing all of them? Like, does that
yeah,
exist? Because I don't
yeah.
think so.
No, no, like what if it's like, first of all, they're family, so they're not gonna get along. But what
Yeah.
if like they're always telling they're always how do I say this? Like Zeus, right? He has a he they're always showing like he's a bad dad or he's a bad husband. Like why not tell a story that what if he was a good dad and his kids are just jerks? Like something,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you never know. Like it's different because we often tell a story from like a child's point of view, but what about
Yes.
an adult's point of view? Like I don't know, different. Like what about Hades is not a bad guy, he's just an asshole, you know?
Yeah. That's true. Maybe he was given the underworld because he's the only one that had the strength to take care of it. So he saw it as
To
a
put discipline and
yeah,
stuff in one, like,
but
you
everyone else
know,
would have failed. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
It's there. It's
there you go.
there. Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
there.
there's so many ways you can twist it and make it your own, like especially through comic book, because just the visualization can become iconic.
Mhm.
Like I've recently just started, I don't know why, but I just started reading manga. Not reading
Mhm.
manga my whole life, just regular comic books. The fact that it's flip over, you gotta start from the back to the front, right? And then you start reading from here to the other side. So totally, but one thing I just reading, like I started reading The Wolf, The Wolf Never Sleeps,
Mhm.
but in other places it's called The Wolf Won't Sleep, so I don't know. But like the just watching these like work of art, and then the work of art regular comics, like they become iconic, and you know, you never know. You just never know how
Yeah,
far it can go.
that's true though. That's absolutely correct. I mean, comics are a different version of imagination. Like it doesn't give you a scene by, I mean, it does give you scene by scene, but there's still scenes in between those two that you have
Yeah,
to use your imagination.
yeah. Like I
Yeah.
had this, like before I became a dad, I was like every other week in the comic book store, right? Now that I became a dad, I become an adult, so I stopped doing those things, right? But like I used to watch. My one of my favorite characters is Etrigan from DC. I love DC, right? And like, they're always telling the story of like the the demon and the man. But why not tell the story from the demon's point of view, and
Mm.
you start creating this story arc of like how this man just like he lives forever and he had families and he's always constantly burying his kids because he lives forever, but his family doesn't. Like a
Mm.
different story that's more meaningful, like they did the spin. I don't know if you ever watched that movie Dracula Untold.
Did I see that? I don't know. Maybe not. I've seen a lot of Dracula stuff though.
Yeah. So it's basically like it's it's like if Dracula was a good guy.
Okay.
And they told the story and we're like he falls in love with this woman and the woman dies. I can't remember exactly, but like he waits for her. And then he waits for her in different life. So like years pass, times change, and
Um,
he's still waiting. So like that was a dope spin on a different version of Dracula though.
yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. I'll have to I don't think I saw that. I'm gonna have to watch that.
I mean, and I'm just paraphrasing. It probably didn't go the exact way I'm saying it. I remember it, so don't take
Yeah,
my
but
word
it's
for it.
enough that I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's different. I enjoy different sometimes because it's just the same story arc, but different people or
Yeah,
different.
go ahead.
If you're able to create something like that, then it'll be awesome. Kudos for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna certainly try because I mean there's a lot of stories that are very well known and they're missing, like you said, missing a different side for sure. Absolutely. And I'm like, I can't wait to mess this up. Like I cannot wait to get in there.
Hey, if you're not messing it up, you're not doing anything,
It's
honestly.
true.
So you gotta get your hands dirty in some way or form. That's how you wrote these 3 books. Well,
Yep.
two, soon to be 3.
Soon to be 3. That's right. I'm so excited for this book to be out. I'm like so proud of it. But so my father passed away in June.
I'm sorry for the loss.
Thank you. He was a great man. He was absolutely the best person ever. He um touched a lot of lives, touched a lot of lives. And one of the biggest thing it was is that he was a huge supporter of my books and what I was doing. Like anything that I was doing in my life, he always supported it. And he was like, research everything before you make a choice. And I was like, I will, I promise. And so he would really, I think, love this. He liked profound thinking. He liked philosophy. He liked helping people, making people think outside the box. He liked music and emotions. He's a spiritualist. And I mean, it was all the things. And so I used this one in particular. I was writing it. I was up there on when he was on hospice. So I was writing it up there in New York. And then he had ALS. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. It was,
Yeah.
he had ALS. So when he did pass, as grief happens, back and forth. And so I really like dug in there because he was my favorite person. And some of the scenes that I wrote were absolutely profound. And we're talking about sunsets and colors and eternity and how like everyone sees the same sunset. There's nothing that separates us, no culture, no religion. We're all the same people when we watch the sunset. Like it's just phenomenal. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, it's we all see the same thing, we just have different views.
Exactly. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
some of us tend to embrace it and just enjoy it and take it for what it is. Others just make a unnecessary shit show for it. So, it's just different views. And sometimes that could
Yeah.
be okay, you know?
Yep. I mean, if people want to live in the chaos, then I mean that's their choice. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is choices. And that's also what this series is about choices. Is do
Yeah.
you live in the mayhem that you're creating and be your own victim because the only
Yes.
person who's
Yeah.
making you suffer is you, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How much of this book, your first book, how much is it a lot that you can refer to within the story?
Like what do you mean?
Like they say that to be a good writer, and I'm just assuming, right? Because all the interviews and the pleasurable conversations I've had, they'll say that, write what you know,
Mhm.
and that'll, get the ball rolling to find some success rather than, write about something that you have no idea about. Like me trying to write a story about a shrink and I have no knowledge of being a shrink. I could probably be the patient, the shrink. So like,
Yeah.
is there anything within the story that you look at and you can relate to?
Oh, all the time. All the time. As an author, when I wrote the first book, I was like, I did real good on keeping my personality out of this, and that was incorrect. I'm all in these things. Like I'm totally all over the place in here.
Yeah.
Um, like little pieces of my own. Like for example, I mentioned in the prologue in book one how the main character doesn't eat cereal with milk. And
Hmm.
like her friend was like, that's weird, but cool. It's because sometimes I just eat my cereal dry, like stupid things like
I eat cereal
that.
dry. I don't think that's stupid. Now I've ate, a stupid thing is eating cereal with water. Remember growing up, we were so broke, you know, you,
It just
you
drink it
know,
with
the
water.
water,
Yeah.
you know,
I thought
but
about it once. I was like, no.
just, pass on it,
Yeah.
pass on it.
Yeah. There's
But
there's things in the book that I say or phrases that I personally say that I've added. And the nature, like I love nature so much. Like I think there's not enough I can say about it and how it connects us all. And I really lean on that through the books,
yeah,
because it's like the core of the story also.
that's awesome. I'm happy you're able to create such a work of art and share with the world.
Yeah. I think I wrote it for me first, but I wrote it for my readers second. And I wrote it for my readers to help them with whatever they're dealing with in their life. And I'm hoping that it helps them see the light in the life that they have and then in themselves. And then they can still be okay. Because everyone's hurting. I mean,
Yeah.
we might be smiling on the outside sometimes, but inside I think we're all a mess, honestly. So
No,
I wrote,
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
yeah, like anyone, like I'm great, but I'm also like sad
Yeah,
because
yeah.
my dad died. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy and I love my life, but my dad died and I'm sad. Like it's somewhere in there, there's sadness.
Yeah, I get
And
it. I it's been a year, been like, yeah, a year or two, no, a year. My grandmother passed away, and like I don't know, like I don't like when like how do I say this? Like growing up, I grew up with my grandparents, right? So it was a lot of like funerals. And I grew up in Puerto Rico, so like funerals over there is different from over here. Like over there, if somebody's well known, small community, we don't play music for a week. Here's different. Here you die, you go straight to a hole. There's no preserving memory or showing respect of memory. So like she passed away and I didn't like she was me and her were so close that I don't know how to process a death that close.
mm,
Like, sometimes I just sit and think, like she was a big smoker. Oh my God. Like if I ever die of secondhand smoke, I know why. But like she had a certain respect for me because obviously growing up, I was very different than a normal kid. And like when it came to me, she never smoked by my side. She's a person very quiet, like usually those parents are stressing out, smoking a cigarette to the side, but it meant so much to me. And it's like we didn't have to share words or it's like I don't know, it's that thing and where you just know, you know?
yeah, yeah,
I don't know if it makes sense to my listeners and viewers, but like it makes sense that you just know. And we didn't have to talk and we to me had to know do anything to know that I love you and she loved me, and so I get that I get what you're saying. That makes me sad every fucking day, honestly.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, every fucking day because I want to have a relationship like that with my son. He's 6 years old, he's autistic, and obviously a better relationship that I have, but like I want to have that connection and where sometimes you don't need to talk.
mm,
Just being there right next to that person, it's enough to say everything's gonna be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
So,
that's
so,
true.
you're gonna be okay.
So it will always be okay as long as we believe that. I mean, obviously there will be nights and days that we're like, man, this really sucks, and we'll cry it out and be like, the world hates us, but it doesn't. It's just a dark night right now. It's gonna
Yeah,
end. The day will come. The sun will rise up, and it will be okay.
yeah,
Every day is a new day,
yeah.
honestly.
Yeah, I think it's honestly if you gotta live your life. You can't live with based on what everybody else says or opinion or just like because that takes so much energy. That drains you dry.
Yeah.
Like I had this conversation with my sister and I told her, I care what I think about myself.
Mhm.
So if it's the way I walk down the street, if I don't think that's one my 100%, then I need to do better.
Mhm.
And it gets tough, but it's also like it gives you a drive. Like is that saying, life is always trying to fuck you over. Well, this is my time going. It's gonna be different. I'm gonna take
Yeah,
her. It's about to
that's
get
it.
on like Donkey Kong. So
Yeah.
you gotta get pushing right now. You got a lot of things to work, and don't forget that that's what makes you happy. You're doing what you love. And a lot of people can't say that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So I learned that happiness is being happy with yourself and who you are and where you're going. Because if you're
Yeah,
making the wrong choices and you aren't happy with the choices you're making, then you're going to be upset and you're going to say life is beating you down. But
yeah,
those are your choices. You got to live by them. So happy, even when I make a mistake, which I do because I'm not perfect. I made that mistake, my bad. Super won't do that again. If I do it again, and be like, for real, I'm not going to do it this time. But
yeah,
it's accepting the mistake, acknowledging the mistake, and learning how to attempt not to do the same thing over so your life is better. That's happiness, is
yeah.
loving yourself.
Yeah, learning the lesson, and life will continue. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. You're gonna. It's a learning thing. You gotta embrace it,
Mm,
and that's
yep.
things. Once you're able to embrace that, things are gonna be a little bit more easier. And you're gonna find yourself like realizing things are not that serious, and continue. You gotta live a life that you're proud of.
Yes.
You know, and live a life that when it's time to clock out, you can say, "Damn, it was a good life. It wasn't
Yep.
perfect, and but at least you try to trace some type of perfection that made you happy, and that's what matters."
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, at some point that just everything sort of changed for me and I'm not 100% sure where it was. I did it, but instead of me saying I need to look good so people think I am successful, it
Mm,
changed. It changed to I'm gonna dress what makes me happy and what makes me comfortable because I'm dressing for me and not other people. So people pleasing, once you
yeah,
get rid of that, Jimmy wearing black shoes doesn't match his shot, like his shirt doesn't matter. Shouldn't matter. Shouldn't
yeah,
matter anymore. We're
yeah,
beyond that, you
yeah,
know? Mm.
100%. If days you want to dress good, you dress good. Days you want to dress comfortable, you dress comfortable. You got to do makes you happy. You can't go out there and live a life based on opinions because if the world's crazy now, you're gonna be even more crazier. So like, fuck it.
Yes, 100%. Yep.
Uh, one last question before we go. Like, if you had any word of advice to somebody like yourself that's trying to write their first novel, write their first book, write their own story, right? What words of encouragement will you give them?
So my advice, a couple of my friends came to me and said, I want to write a book. I don't know how. And I was like, well, you need to write it. It needs to be written. You need to put
Mm.
the words on the paper and write it. And they're like, but it's not going to sound great. And I was like, it doesn't matter. I say really and just so much in my story when I first write it. And Grammarly is like, absolutely not. And it deletes every single one. Like all my sarcasm, it just immediately gets rid of. But to start a story, write it how you talk and think first. Just write it out. And then after that, go back through it and put different words in, you know, some synonyms and or whatever metaphors, and change it around. And it's a work in progress. So nothing is perfect ever. Ever. There's not a story that an author will read through and will not change something in it. They will always change something. So learn to know when to let it go, give it up to somebody else, and let it be. Be happy with what you have. Like, let it be. Let it be. There's no perfect. And then be proud. Be proud of yourself for even writing one draft. Like, that's amazing. It's seriously very hard to write down a story sometimes and to commit to it and put your emotions and vision in there. Be proud of whatever it looks like, and be proud for every step after that first draft.
Boom. There you have it, guys.
Mic drop. Bah.
There you go. Before we go, tell the people where they can find you at.
Sure. So I have a TikTok, which I'm very popular about myself. I'm very proud of myself for having a not popular. I didn't mean popular. I meant proud. So my TikTok handle is the Exalted Peacock is my handle. And then my Instagram handle is Height_Bristow_revolution, because I'm weird. And then I'm on Facebook as well. Rebecca Heidt author is my official page. And then I have RebeccaHeidt.com, which is my official page. And then my books are on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and at little bookstores around the country.
Boom, there you have it, guys. Go check out The Acceptance. Go support her. Go get her book. Go follow her. Go show her some love. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah.
It's an honor talking to you. I had so much fun.
You're awesome. We're gonna do this at book 3.
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait. Make sure you go to my YouTube channel, DIOTALK TV. Go like and subscribe, because if you subscribe, you're able to support all these amazing entrepreneurs and authors like Rebecca. Go follow me on Instagram at Mr.DreamInspiredTane. I'm on Threads. I'm out, guys. Have a good night.